The aliens laughed when they saw our old, slow battleship. They called it primitive, outdated, and weak. Then we fired our guns. And their entire fleet turned and ran for their life. Vessel showed aliens our outdated battleship. And they immediately fled. Captain Elena Vargas stood on the bridge of the old battleship Retribution and looked out at the empty space around her ship. The year was 2147, and Earth had joined the galactic community only 5 years earlier. Most human ships were small and fast, now built for trade and exploration, but Retribution was different. She was a relic from the old days, a massive war machine from before humans met the stars. She was slow, heavy, and covered in thick armor that no one used anymore. Her guns were big rail cannons that fired solid metal slugs instead of fancy energy beams. Her engines rumbled like an old truck, instead of humming like the new ships. Elena loved her anyway. She had served on modern cruisers, but there was something honest about Retribution. The ship did not pretend to be something she was not. Her crew of 250 men and women knew every creak and groan in her metal bones. They called her Old Rusty, but they said it with pride. Today was supposed to be a simple training cruise near the outer edges of the solar system. Then the alarms went off. Captain, unknown contacts. Her sensor officer, Lieutenant Park, said in a calm voice, multiple signatures dropping out of FTL. They're big. Elena turned to the main screen. Dozens of sleek, silver ships appeared in a perfect formation. They looked like knives cutting through space. Their hulls glowed with blue energy lines. These were not human ships. These were alien. Open a channel, Elena ordered. The screen flickered, and a tall creature appeared. It had smooth gray skin, large black eyes, and a thin body wrapped in what looked like flowing robes made of light. The alien's voice came through the speakers, translated by the ship's computer into clear English. I am High Commander Zorath of the Vexari Dominion. You are in claimed space. Identify yourselves and power down your weapons. Elena stood straight. This is Captain Elena Vargas of the Earth ship Retribution. We are on a training mission in human territory. We mean no harm. Zorath's black eyes narrowed to human. The new species from the Sol system. We have heard of you. Your kind joined the Galactic Council recently. Your technology is primitive. You still use chemical rockets and metal bullets in some places. Leave this area at once or we will remove you. The crew on the bridge exchanged looks. Primitive. Retribution might be old, but she was no toy before. Elena could reply. More alien ships appeared. A full fleet now surrounded them. The Vexari ships were beautiful and deadly. Their weapons hummed with power that could slice through modern human shields like paper. Zorath continued, his voice cold. We are on a patrol to remind lesser species of their place. Your single ship is no threat. Surrender or be destroyed. As an example, Elena felt her blood heat up. Humans had fought hard to reach the stars. They had survived wars on Earth, climate disasters, and the shock of finding out they were not alone. They had earned their seat at the galactic table through grit and cleverness, not fancy tech. She looked at her crew. They were ready. We are not leaving, she said firmly. This is our space. If you want to fight, come and take it. Zorath laughed. It was a sharp, clicking sound. Foolish. We will disable your ship and take your crew as prisoners to show the Council what happens to those who resist the Vexari. The alien fleet began to move closer. Their energy weapons started charging. Blue light grew brighter along their hulls. Elena turned to her weapons officer. Load all rail cannons. Target the lead ship. Fire when ready. The old battleship shook as her massive guns woke up. Retribution had 12 main rail cannons, each one capable of throwing a 10-ton slug of depleted uranium at speeds that made them hit like small meteors. They were loud, dirty, and old-fashioned. Modern human ships used lasers and missiles with smart guidance, but these guns were simple. They did not need complex computers to work in a jamming field. They just needed power and a target. Fire, Elena said. The bridge lights dimmed for a second as the cannons roared. Even in the vacuum of space, the ship vibrated with the force. 12 heavy slugs shot out at incredible speed toward the Vexari flagship. The aliens did not even raise their shields at first. Why would they? Their sensors told them the human ship was using kinetic weapons, primitive, slow, easy to dodge or block with energy fields. The first slug hit the Vexari ship's shield. The blue energy field flared bright, then cracked like glass. The second slug punched through and slammed into the hull. Metal exploded outward in a silent spray of debris. More slugs followed. The alien ship shuddered as holes tore through its elegant lines. Its glowing blue lines went dark. Zorath's image on the screen flickered. His calm face twisted in shock. "What is this? Your weapons? They are too strong for your level of technology." Elena smiled coldly. "Old doesn't mean weak. These guns were built to fight in the worst wars on Earth. They hit hard and keep hitting." The Vexari fleet opened fire. Bright energy beams lanced toward Retribution. The old battleship's armor was thick, layered with steel and ceramic composites from decades ago. It was not designed for energy weapons, but it was tough. The beams burned deep gouges into the hull, but they did not cut all the way through. Retribution kept moving, slow but steady. "Return fire," Elena ordered. "All batteries, don't stop until they back off." The rail cannons kept pounding. Each shot was like a hammer from God. The Vexari shields, designed for elegant energy duels, struggled against the raw kinetic force. Slugs smashed through defenses and ripped apart internal systems. One Vexari cruiser lost its entire engine section in a single hit. Another ship had its command tower sheared off. The aliens adapted quickly. They started dodging, using their superior speed. Their smaller ships swarmed around Retribution like angry bees, firing point-blank energy blasts. Damage reports started coming in, hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. The damage control officer shouted, "We're vending air, but teams are sealing it." Elena gripped the arm of her chair. "Keep us pointed at their biggest ships. Make every shot count." Lieutenant Park called out, "Captain, they're hailing us again." Zorath appeared, his face no longer calm. Smoke seemed to drift behind him on his bridge. "A human, ceasefire. This is madness. Your ship should not be able to hurt us like this. Your technology is outdated." Elena leaned forward. "Outdated to you, maybe, but we built this ship to survive hell. She has thick armor because we knew enemies would hit us hard. We have big guns because sometimes you need to hit back harder. You came here thinking we were easy prey. Now you're learning different." The battle raged for over an hour. Retribution took heavy damage. Her engines were hit twice, slowing her even more. Sections of her armor were glowing red from energy fire, but she kept fighting. Her rail cannons never stopped. Every time a Vexari ship got too close or lined up a shot, a heavy slug found it. The crew worked like machines. Engineers crawled through narrow passages to patch leaks. Gunners loaded shells by hand when auto-loaders jammed. Medics treated burns and broken bones without complaint. One young ensign named Marcus lost his arm when a console exploded, but he stayed at his post, directing fire with his good hand until they dragged him to sickbay. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. This was humanity at its best. Not the shiny new ships with perfect AI, but people who refused to quit. Then the turning point came. The Vexari fleet pulled back suddenly. Their ships formed a defensive wall around their damaged flagship. Zorath's voice came over the channel again, but this time it was not angry. It was worried. "Human captain, we request a temporary ceasefire. We misjudge your capabilities." Elena did not lower her guns. "Talk." Zorath paused. His black eyes looked away for a moment, as if consulting someone off screen. "We are the Vexari Dominion. We have conquered dozens of worlds. Our technology is advanced beyond most species in this sector. We use energy shields that can withstand plasma storms. Our weapons can vaporize cities from orbit. Yet your primitive kinetic cannons are tearing through our defenses like they are nothing. How is this possible?" Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Because we didn't have fancy shields and energy guns when we built her. We had to make do with what we had: thick metal, heavy bullets. Engines that could take a beating." Retribution was built during a time when humans fought each other with everything we had. She was designed to keep fighting even when half her systems were gone. "Your fancy tech is great until it meets something simple and brutal that it wasn't ready for." Zorath seemed to think. "We have scanned your ship. Your armor is crude. Your power systems are inefficient. Your computers are slow by our standards. Yet the raw power of your weapons, the way your hull absorbs damage, it reminds us of something from our own ancient history." He leaned closer to the screen. "There is a legend among the Vexari. Long ago, before we mastered energy weapons, we faced a species called the Krikks. They used simple projectile weapons and armored ships that would not die. They rammed our fleets. They kept firing even when their ships were burning. We beat them in the end with superior numbers and technology, but it cost us dearly. Your ship fights like those old Krikks vessels, stubborn, heavy, and yielding. Elena nodded. Humans have a word for that. We call it grit. We don't give up easy. The Vexari commander was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again. We are withdrawing. This engagement has shown us that the humans are not as weak as the Council reports suggested. Your outdated ship has damaged 12 of our vessels, including our flagship. We will report this to the Dominion. Perhaps negotiations with Earth should be handled with more respect. Elena kept her voice steady. Wise choice. Next time you come into human space, bring friends, you'll need them. Zorath's image faded. The sleek alien fleet turned as one and jumped into FTL, leaving behind debris and damaged ships that would need towing. The bridge of Retribution was quiet for a second. Then cheers erupted. The crew hugged each other, slapped backs, and laughed with relief. Elena sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. Retribution was hurt. She had holes in her hull, damaged engines, and systems that would need months in dry deck, but she was still here, still flying. Lieutenant Park wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned. They ran. Captain, a whole alien fleet turned tail because of old Rusty. Elena laughed softly, not because of fancy tech, because of what we built when we had nothing else, because humans don't quit. Back on Earth, the story spread fast. Videos of the battle, recorded by Retribution's cameras and transmitted home, became instant legends. People called it the day the old battleship spoke. News channels played the footage over and over, the heavy slugs tearing through alien shields, the way Retribution kept firing even as she burned. The Galactic Council was shocked. Representatives from dozens of species watched the reports in disbelief. The Vexari Dominion, known for their arrogance and power, had fled from a single human ship that was considered obsolete even by human standards. Ambassadors who had looked down on humans before started speaking with more caution. Trade deals that were stalled suddenly moved forward. Species that had ignored Earth now sent envoys asking for meetings. In the months that followed, human engineers studied the battle data carefully. They learned that sometimes old designs had advantages. The rail cannons were simple enough that alien jamming did not affect them. The thick armor shrugged off energy weapons better than expected because it was not reliant on energy fields that could be overloaded. New ships started incorporating lessons from Retribution, hybrid designs with heavy kinetic backups alongside modern energy weapons, thicker hulls for certain mission profiles. Crews trained to fight even when systems failed, but Retribution herself became a symbol. She was repaired and turned into a museum ship, but not before one last voyage. The government decided to take her on a goodwill tour through human space and even to some alien worlds that had requested to see her. Elena was given command for that final trip. As Retribution cruised past the orbit of Mars with her patched hull gleaming under fresh paint, crowds of humans gathered on viewing platforms to watch. On one stop at a neutral space station near the border with Vexari space, something unexpected happened. A Vexari delegation requested permission to come aboard. Elena met them in the main hangar. High Commander Zorath himself stepped out of the shuttle, flanked by guards. He looked different in person, taller than he seemed on screen, with subtle patterns on his gray skin that glowed faintly. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect among his people. Captain Vargas, I asked to see your ship with my own eyes. The reports, they did not do her justice. Elena gestured for him to follow. They walked through the corridors of Retribution. The old battleship smelled of oil and metal and sweat. Crew members saluted as they passed. The walls showed scars from the battle, some left visible on purpose as reminders. Zorath ran his long fingers along a bulkhead where an energy beam had burned a deep groove. This armor, it is simple iron and composites, yet it held against our plasma lances. Our scientists are still studying the data. They say the way the material distributes kinetic and thermal energy is inefficient but effective in ways we never considered. He stopped at one of the rail cannon turrets. The massive gun barrel was longer than a shuttle, and these weapons, solid metal projectiles accelerated by magnetic fields, no energy signature until impact. No warning for our sensors until the slug is already upon us. Brutal, direct. Elena nodded. We called them dumb weapons back in the day. No guidance systems, just point and shoot. But when you fire enough of them and they hit hard enough, guidance isn't needed. Zorath looked at her with those large black eyes. Your species is young among the stars. Most new races either submit or are absorbed. You fight with what you have. You take your old machines and make them bite harder than our newest designs. The Dominion has decided to open full diplomatic relations with Earth. No more patrols near your borders, no more tests of strength. He paused, then added quietly. And we have recalled several commanders who underestimated humans, including myself. In a way, I was demoted but allowed to lead this mission of learning. Elena smiled. Learning is good. We humans are still learning too. We learned that the galaxy is bigger and stranger than we thought, but we also learned that our old ways have value. They continued the tour. Zorath asked questions about everything: how the crew lived in such cramped quarters, why humans painted messages on the walls like "don't quit" and "rusty but reliable", how the ship could still function with so many manual controls instead of full automation. At the end, in the engine room where the old fusion reactors hummed loudly, Zorath stopped and looked around. Your engines are loud, inefficient, they waste energy, yet they produce enough power to drive these massive guns without failing. Our ships are silent and perfect, but when damaged, they fail gracefully. Yours, they fight until the last bolt. He turned to Elena. There is a phrase in your language I have studied. They don't make them like they used to. I think I understand it now. Elena chuckled. Sometimes the old ones are the best because they were built when failure meant death, so we build them strong. As the Vexari left, Zorath gave one last bow. Tell your people the Dominion respects strength, even when it comes in an outdated package. Retribution's final voyage ended back at Earth. She was towed into a special dock near the moon, where she would rest as a museum and training vessel. School groups would visit her. Veterans would tell stories about her battle. New recruits would learn what it meant to fight with heart. Captain Elena Vargas retired a year later. She wrote a book about the encounter called The Ship That Would Not Die. It became a bestseller on Earth and was translated into several alien languages, but the real legacy was bigger than one ship or one captain. Across the galaxy, species started looking at humans differently. The story of the old battleship that made a powerful fleet spread far and wide. It became one of those tales told in spaceport bars and council chambers, the tale of how primitive human ship, slow and heavy and outdated, showed the stars that humanity had teeth. Years later, when humans faced a real threat from a distant empire that tried to invade, they did not send only their newest ships. They brought the spirit of retribution with them. New battleships carried rail cannons as secondary weapons, crews trained to keep fighting when power failed. Engineers designed armor that could take a beating, and when the enemy fleet saw the human formation with heavy ships at the center like old ironclads, they remembered the stories. Some turned back before the first shot was fired. Because humans had shown the galaxy something important. Progress was good, fancy technology was useful, but sometimes what really mattered was building something tough enough to last, something with the stubborn heart of people who refused to be easy targets. Retribution might have been old, but she taught the universe a lesson that day. Never underestimate what humans can do with what they have. Never think that outdated means harmless. Because when the aliens came looking for easy prey, they found a ship that fought like an angry bull, and they ran. The stars learned to respect that. And humanity kept building, kept exploring, kept showing the galaxy that being human meant never backing down. Even when the odds looked bad and the tech looked old Rusty had spoken loud enough for the whole universe to hear. And the universe listened.